The 2020s have become an era of quiet luxury, and what could be more quiet than the simple act of showing off your groceries? Hi there, my name is Tessa, and fashion has really been working up my appetite lately. Prada is serving up coffee, Kylie Cosmetics is collaborating with Crumble Cookies, and J. Crew is sculpting purses out of butter. But why is an industry that has such a complicated relationship with food suddenly so crazy about it? Well, it might be because of the economy. If you've seen the prices of eggs in America, then you know that we're not in a great place right now. And with Donald Trump insisting on this silly game of tariff chicken, I feel like it's gonna get a lot worse before it gets any better.
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
If/when we wind up in a full-blown recession, instead of cars and designer handbags as status symbols, it'll be food, which is so depressing, it makes me want to scream. Now, this obviously isn't the first time that food and fashion have intersected, and if we go back to the 1950s, we can see an assortment of brands combine the two in their marketing. In some instances, fashion was used to advertise a food product, making it appear modern and trendy, while also presenting it in an unusual way that was guaranteed to make you pause. Citrus was a short-lived motif on clothing and accessories, which I obviously am on board with, but where food really became popular was in the beauty and cosmetics space. Cutex was notable for releasing a popular lip and nail shade called Cute Tomato, which was described as the, quote, freshest, ripest red ever cultivated, which they soon followed up with the similar Hot Strawberry. This was an early example of sensory marketing, which utilizes the five senses to create a deeper human connection with the product. Besides tomatoes and strawberries making it clear what color these lipsticks were, it also implied that they'd make you look fresh, juicy, and delicious. Hot Strawberry and Cute Tomato were even popular enough to inspire some novelty prints, which made the wearer look like a treat. Other cosmetics companies followed their lead and released an array of products like Wild Peach, Cherries in the Snow, Berry Bonbon, and Cinderella's Pumpkin. In the 1960s, food-related imagery continued to appear in advertising, but it went in a sort of surreal, tongue-in-cheek direction to tie into the era's generally youthful and zany atmosphere. One of the most popular food motifs at the time was Campbell's soup, in large part because of Andy Warhol's paintings, and the cans made appearances on purses and dresses as a sort of gimmick. Although the hippie movement was all about getting in touch with the earth, it wasn't really focused on edibles, so fruit and vegetables weren't very popular in the fashion space, but they remained a staple of the beauty industry. Just like any consumer good, fragrances go through trend cycles, and while the 1970s were defined by this spicy, musky, woodsy scent that was very hippy-dippy, advancements in synthetics led to an increase in shampoos, lip glosses, and perfumes inspired by lemons, apples, peaches, grapes, and an assortment of other fruits. And let's not forget about the popularity of strawberry shortcake and all of her other scented friends. Bright and bold colors were all the rage in the 1980s. But food didn't make a lot of appearances in advertising, perhaps because the era as a whole wasn't really focused on the natural and fresh-faced associations that usually came with fruits and vegetables. Although food motifs had been present in the cosmetics industry for decades, there was a reason why food and fashion stayed relatively separate all those years: diet culture. For most of the 20th century, there was a lot of aggressive marketing for weight loss products and fad diets, with the messaging boiling down to, if you're fat, you're ugly. This understandably made people develop a pretty negative relationship with food, and it'd be pretty tough to convince someone to wear a shirt covered in carbs and sugar if they weren't supposed to be eating them. By the 1990s, attitudes had slightly shifted, in large part because of that era's counterculture movements which embraced individuality. This led to a rise in shock and awe marketing strategies, with ads featuring bizarre visuals or hypersexual imagery. This idea trickled into the fashion space, where we saw models serving burgers in bikinis or getting groceries in ball gowns. By using food as a prop, they were able to create a fun contrast that was playful and rebellious while still being glamorous. In the 2000s, teen spending was at an all-time high, reaching nearly $200 billion annually. Understandably, everyone was trying to tap into this thriving market, and the snack industry was one of the first to crack the code. Obviously, kids like sugar, but how do you get parents on board? By pretending that your product is somewhat healthy.
And Trix is a fruity part of a balanced breakfast.
With intense fruit-berry blends. Watch out for easy open, all-natural Capri Sun coolers.
Gushers, Capri Sun, and Trix were all given fruit-forward marketing strategies, vaguely implying that they had some of the health benefits of the real thing, even though we all know that that isn't actually the case. Other brands began releasing all sorts of products with similar imagery to appeal to the teen demographic, like strawberry-flavored lip glosses, candy-scented perfumes, and fruit-themed clothing. In 2004, Jessica Simpson even launched an edible beauty line that was literally called Dessert, while songs about different sweets, like Milkshake, Laffy Taffy, Candy, and Candy Shop, were blowing up in the hip-hop genre. The 2000s was all about excess. Bedazzled jeans, giant logos, rhinestone phones, and bright colors. Wealth wasn't something to hide. It was something to flaunt, which we saw play out on reality TV shows like The Kardashians, The Girls Next Door, The Simple Life, My Super Sweet 16, and The Real Housewives, which gave us a unique glimpse into the lives of the rich and famous. But when the 2008 recession hit, all of that conspicuous consumption became a faux pas. To counteract criticism, people started downplaying their wealth. After all, it wasn't a good look to be showing off your private jet when your neighbors were literally getting kicked out of their houses. This shift led to a lot of luxury brands seeing a drop in sales, which they sought to resolve by teaming up with fast fashion retailers like H&M and Target.
Shoppers running through H&M stores to buy sought-after pieces from the much-anticipated collaboration with luxury brand Balmain.
A Missoni dress might cost you $1,000 at Saks. Like when I see them in the catalog, I'm like, okay, not for me. At Target, though, $60, girlfriend.
At H&M, crowds surged into stores yesterday as the Alexander Wang collection hit shelves and crashed the website.
The economy may be struggling, but you would not have known it from the lines at Target yesterday. It was a fashion frenzy.
In theory, this strategy gave you the chance of buying a designer brand at a fraction of the price. But in practice, there was such a limited supply that resellers would just drive up the prices so high that you might as well have bought the real thing. With the rise of the body positivity movement in the 2010s, food was no longer presented as the enemy, and the fashion floodgates opened, with donuts, avocados, and sushi becoming a near inescapable motif, at least in fast fashion. If you watched my video about pick-me foods, then you know that those same dishes were really popular on social media at the time, so it made sense for them to appear on clothing. Food also made appearances in the high fashion space, which felt like a weak attempt to seem relatable, as evidenced by the prevalence of junk foods like pasta, pizza, and burgers. Unlike the candy imagery of the previous decade, which read as sweet, innocent, and youthful, in the 2010s, food got a lot more animalistic. Sure, there was sex appeal, but mostly it read as gluttonous, as if their lifestyle was so rich, they were going to make themselves sick. This brings us to the 2020s, where we've seen food make more and more appearances in the fashion and beauty space. Many people have cited Hailey Bieber's Rhode brand as one of the leaders in this sort of marketing, and I'm inclined to agree. Almost every aspect of their marketing incorporates food in some way, from their product names to their promotional events to their photo shoots. Now, obviously, as I've mentioned, sensory marketing has gone hand in hand with the cosmetics industry for decades now, but Rhode has committed to the bit to a whole new level. With products named espresso and raspberry jelly, we can imagine the smell, texture, and color instantly, painting a clearer image of what we're purchasing. Besides eating being something that we all need to do in order to literally survive, for most people it also has a positive association, thereby tricking your mind into having a similar association with that product. The success of Rhode's strategy has clearly inspired other beauty brands, with Glossier and Milk suddenly using similar food-focused imagery. Because of the way TikTok, Instagram, and social media in general functions, search engine optimization and algorithms are the key to going viral. This has resulted in every single trend being given a catchy name in order to be clickable, searchable, and linkable. And food-related monikers have been especially popular, like the coconut girl aesthetic, blueberry milk nails, the strawberry dress, and cherry coke hair. Even Pantone's color of the year is mocha mousse. And other trendy shades for 2025 include cherry red, pistachio green, and butter yellow. Do we see a pattern? Even though food imagery has become such a huge trend in fashion, it's interesting how it still glamorizes a specific body type, the one that advertisers have been shaming women into having for decades. This idea that these models and celebrities can indulge in all of these foods but stay a size 0 hints at another thing that the wealthy have access to that the rest of us don't: time and resources. They can hire personal trainers, private chefs, get liposuction, and get on Ozempic. Meanwhile, if you're someone with diabetes who actually needs to use it the way it was intended, and you don't have insurance, you're shelling out at least $1,000 a month. And in all honesty, in a lot of these instances, the food isn't even really being depicted as something to enjoy. It's purely performative.
Is butter a carb?
Yes.
As long as there have been rich people and poor people, food has been used as an obvious indication of status. Take, for instance, the humble pineapple. In the 16th and 17th centuries, a number of exotic foods were brought back from Asia and the New World, including the pineapple. And because of its unusual appearance and difficulty to transport, it became the fruit of kings. By the 18th century, there were attempts to grow it in Europe, which was no easy task considering the climate. And to have the means to grow a pineapple, you had to be especially wealthy. With it taking several years for a single pineapple to sprout, people didn't just eat them. They would actually display them in their homes for people to fawn over. In fact, pineapples were such a hot commodity that you could even rent them to prove to your guests that you were a person of means and culture. Like basically any trend, the fascination the public had with pineapples led to it trickling into art, fashion, and design. As the years passed and they became easier to obtain, the middle class was able to enjoy the odd pineapple here and there. And just like that, they were no longer a status symbol. And by the 1950s, pineapples had become so accessible that their canned variety became a household staple, being served on cakes, hams, and in Jell-O. They were no longer the fruit of kings, but the fruit of the working class. The opposite has happened with seafood. Back in the 1800s, oysters and lobsters were considered trash, being so widely available that they were used to feed prisoners. Things have obviously changed over the years, with both being touted as delicacies with a price point to match. In the 2020s, they've become an increasingly popular motif in the fashion space and are seen as a symbol of taste and luxury. As silly as that may seem, the idea is that if you like these foods enough to wear them, then surely you must have the funds to back up this culinary adventurousness. The 2020s have become an era of quiet luxury, and what could be more quiet than the simple act of showing off your groceries? We've seen a variety of brands incorporate fresh ingredients like lemons, tomatoes, lettuce, and butter into their designs and imagery. Just look at how Hermes recreated the Birkin with fruits and vegetables, equating the price of fresh organic produce to their incredibly expensive purses. Similar to the 2010s, some brands are leaning into more relatable food imagery with snow cones, pancakes, pasta, and candy. It makes you desire their product the same way you desire the foods they're showcasing. Some brands have even made a point of directly collaborating with well-known foods like Kate Spade and Heinz Ketchup, Chipotle Luena and Hellmann's Mayo, or Balenciaga and Lay's potato chips. It's obvious that these were designed to fall into a sort of novelty gimmick space, like a joke, but I find it hard to laugh when they're being sold for thousands of dollars. Back in the day, high fashion brands relied on fast fashion collaborations in order to help them weather economic storms. But with American consumers opting for online marketplaces like Shein, Amazon, and Temu, that strategy doesn't feel like it would work anymore. With that in mind, I genuinely wonder if fashion brands are going to be collaborating with food companies more often. You might not be able to afford that $5,000 Versace purse, but you might splurge on a Ferrero Medusa Rocher. Coca-Cola has collaborated with different designers in the past, but what if they teamed up with Ralph Lauren to maximize their joint American capitalism sleigh? And I'd be lying if I said that I wouldn't line up to buy a Bon Moment jam jar with a Chanel tweed lid. This wouldn't even be a huge reach considering how many brands have started dipping their toes into the food industry. This first began in 1998 when Armani opened their first restaurant, and since then they've opened 20 others all across the world, including Tokyo, Milan, Dubai, and New York. According to Giorgio Armani himself, quote, "I always wanted the Armani brand to become an expression of style as a lifestyle, of sophisticated simplicity as a sign of elegance in every field. And food is one of the most important elements of everyday life that can't be missing. Can we all afford to spend thousands of dollars on a dress? Probably not, but you can still sit down at a cafe and order yourself a fancy coffee and pretend that you're a customer. After all, what's wrong with a little treat every now and then?" This logic is why Prada, Dior, Gucci, Tiffany's, and dozens of other brands have opened up cafes and seasonal pop-ups in recent years, as they're able to appeal to both fashionistas and foodies. This is kind of a whole other conversation, but with conservatism on the rise, as evidenced by the tradwife movement and the recent election, I also wonder if this sudden emphasis on food in fashion is meant to tie into this idea of women being homemakers. We cook, we clean, we shop. While I acknowledge that this food-focused marketing works, it still leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, since it just winds up feeling like they're rubbing their privilege in our faces. While some of us are struggling from paycheck to paycheck, The 1% are posting TikToks eating a single $19 strawberry, doing caviar bumps while sitting in first class, or using thousands of eggs for Easter during a nationwide shortage. It's a level of inconsideration that's perhaps only rivaled by King Louis's court, and we all know how that turned out.
The Queen and her aristocratic cronies must pay the price for their gluttony!
What are your thoughts on this food-focused trend? That's it for this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!